Hi, and welcome to the Land Pioneers podcast, where we get to meet some of the most prominent land developers and experts in the industry. Listen to the gems and learn from the experience of these giants of the industry. And today's guest is Rodney Mifsud from Resi Ventures. So, Resi Ventures, we had Huram Saeed from Resi Ventures on our show last year, but it's a Melbourne-based land development company, and Rodney is responsible for site acquisition across Australia-wide, with many different projects. Rodney is someone that I'm so impressed with because he's like, I've talked to him for the first time, but it's almost like I've known him for many, many years. And he's just such a nice guy. And at the same time, he's got a super impressive track record in Melbourne's real estate industry and beyond. He's got over 12 years of securing land developments and forming value-driven land development agreements in his role as Director of Acquisitions. His highlights of the career include coordinating major joint ventures for projects such as 900 lot McMahon's Place in Echuca, negotiating in some other intricate land development agreements and closing land deals worth over 500 million, which have resulted in over $2 billion worth of final value. He's someone that goes to the nth degree to find deals. I've heard a story on the grapevine that if it means even being chased by Rottweilers after knocking on a landowner's door, things like that. But luckily, he made back to his car safely. And Rodney, who's a lifetime Melburnian, he barracks for the Bombers, is an ardent car racing enthusiast and an overall really nice guy. But just briefly, a little bit about Eagle Vision. So we're the sponsors for the Land Pioneers podcast. And with over 16 years of dedication to our craft, we've delivered 3D visualization excellence across 716 projects, including approximately 40 land estate subdivisions. And here are three things that make Eagle Vision unique and where we may be a good fit for some of the land developers across the country. Less is more. We focus on strategy, not just pretty pictures. With our founders' background in property development, the strategy of effective 3D visuals is always the most important part, and it takes priority over everything else. 24/7 round the clock. With our team based in Australia and Eastern Europe, we work on a 24-hour turnaround basis to make sure that we increase the pace of delivering for our clients and their projects, and ultimately, extreme transparency. We pride ourselves on creating utmost transparency in our operation, and we've built systems and processes to involve clients at every step of the way. They get to see the machine's inner workings and can track their project's progress intimately. We're constantly coming up with new ideas, thinking of all the different technologies that are coming through, and acting as a bit of a barrier from what may sound really cool, but actually may not have the right return on investment. And some of the things that have worked extremely well are interactive master plans for large-scale land estates. So, experience the future today. Visit us at www.eaglevision.com.au and discover a world of possibilities. And now back to our guest in the show. So, Rodney, to start off with, can you give us a little bit of a background to how you started on your land development journey?
Yeah, hi Stan, and thanks for having me. And you've done some work for Resi Ventures in the past too, so I just want to acknowledge how great that work was and highly recommend it as well. So I didn't have to say that, but thanks, Stan. So my journey, I was fitter and turner by trade for many years, and I was dabbling in property, so buying properties for many years, and loved that process and just saw areas growing in value, and I just loved that journey and housing people and having tenants, and it was quite exciting. Did a few renovations myself, and got to a crossroads after being about 20 years in my trade, wondering what I wanted to do, and discovering some opportunities there, and looking at, did I want to be into sales, did I want to be a builder? But I knew I wanted to be something to do with property, and I chose getting into sales. I thought, okay, I'll try sales. I had a couple of properties of my own. I built a portfolio up of 8 properties, and I decided to sell a few, and I was going to sell a few and then buy a few more and go down that road. So I sold a few myself, and I liked the process. I just wanted to have a crack, and that was successful. So I decided to get into sales. So I did my real estate license even before working in sales, ever. And lucky enough, the teacher that I had was great. It was Peter Giannakidis. I can still see him, still talk to him. That was over 10 years ago. Oh, well, yeah, over nearly 15 years ago now. And he was great. He guided me, coached me. He happened to be working in commercial property and land sales predominantly. And I'd hear a lot of stories just doing that course. And that was a weekly course and, a few days a week. So that was good. And I learned a lot there. And that always stuck in my mind. And then I also had Kurum, who and who I now work with. Um, his son and my son played soccer together, so I would always hear stories as well from him. And he was developing some land, and that was always in my head. And I got into residential real estate first, and I enjoyed it. I did it for about 8 months, but I was always gravitating towards land and acreage and development after seeing how that was done, and just seeing how these vacant blocks of land transform into these massive developments. It was very interesting to me. So I went to the launch of Accolade, and I saw this vacant land, and I brought my son with me, and he was very young. And I said, in 5 years' time, this will be a thriving community. And we went back every year since and saw that. But yeah, basically when I transitioned from residential real estate, which I did for a short time, I was at Ray White in Point Cook, and that was a really good training ground at Ray White. They provide some good training. And then kept in touch with Peter, and he worked at a company called Cullinan Commercial, and joined. I gravitated towards that. We listed some land in Rockbank, which is a suburb about 30 k's out of Melbourne, in the western suburbs. And when I was at Ray White, and we really didn't know what to do with it, so I spoke to Kurum and said, "Hey, who can I sell this to?" And he didn't want to buy it, and he got me onto a few contacts. And then one thing led to another, and I was in the land game. So that was the beginnings of an exciting career in land and the growth of Melbourne. Yeah.
Very cool. And so, what was it about land? I suppose you've mentioned a few things like there's a community there, there's some houses that suddenly appear rather than a vacant acreage. Was there anything else that sort of really stood out for you?
Yeah, it was more the you could see the potential for growth all over. We knew Melbourne's been a great city. Having my own rental properties, I could see the growth in those, and seeing you know, basically not just the revenue, but you're housing people. There's a need for it. It's a growing need. We're getting immigration in. So, and it was always different. Land development. You had townhouses, you had houses, you had communities, retirement. There was so many different sectors: commercial, industrial. So it was always different. Whereas in residential, to me, it was a little bit vanilla.
And it's
Um,
a bit more constrained, yeah.
yeah, a bit more constrained. So I love the idea of learning and growing, and just seeing how you can transform this piece of land into a community. And I guess at that point when I got into land, I always wanted to be part of the development side of things, and I knew that would happen in time. And yeah, it's sort of come full circle now. Where one of the first people that I met in the industry was Kurum, and now we're working together in his company at Resi Ventures. So that was and I guess even once I started in commercial and land sales predominantly, that's all we really focused on. I didn't know how much I would love it, like, until the more I learnt, the more I dove into it, and the more I gravitated towards it. And it was just the excitement of it. One of the first deals when I started with Kellerman, and Rudy Kellerman is one of my early mentors. He was a great coach, and he'd been in the industry for 40 years. So I learned a massive amount from him on a daily basis. We were together from morning till night and doing deals. And one of the parcels of land that he worked on and was basically appointed as a sales agent was a large property and this was early on. I was only with him for about 2-3 months, and it was a large property in Windervale. It's now Windermere Estate, which is around 45 k's from Melbourne. And that went on market, and that was 363 odd hectares. And that sold for 400 million to Country
Wow.
Garden. And
Wow.
I was just blown away. I was just like, I didn't even know like coming from a residential base where I sold a house for 400,000, and then here we are selling property for 400 million, and then we had several offers. There was over 30 written offers in that
Wow.
campaign, I and these were people, anywhere from sort of 250 to 400 million. So I knew I had to find more land
That's
to,
incredible.
place this. Yeah, so the other way around. So it was reverse engineering. It was like, okay, we've got the money, now we need to find the land. So how do I fulfill these other, 29 people that missed out on this sale? How do I fulfill their needs? And that's when I, really fell in love with it and thought, this is exciting and I've got to get involved. And I basically went door knocking all the western Melbourne. That was my sort of stomping ground where I grew up, and I knew a lot of the community there. And we listed, I think in a few months, we listed about 7 properties there in Rockbank, and did really well on those. And then, some other deals, plenty of other land deals come across our desk, and it was exciting, very exciting times.
Yeah. So with that Windermere deal, would you say that was the most memorable land deal you've worked on?
It was one of them. It was an eye opener. It was
Okay.
life changing for me, where I thought, this is insane. This is, I can't. I didn't. It's another world, right? Like if you're mum and dad, or just working in your day job, you don't really understand how much goes on in that corporate world. So it was a very game changing moment for me. But from there on, I took to it. I love it. It's my passion. I love people. I love property. I love land, and I fell in love with it and become obsessed with it almost. But it's one of them. There's probably 2 more standout ones that probably really game changing for me. Another deal I did. It was probably about a year after I was with Cullinan. It was a parcel of land in Beveridge. And there was a lot of land sort of being developed and bought by developers, but there was a lot of land also sort of being flipped at that time, where people would contract it and sell it off and make a few dollars. And we didn't really focus in that market. It wasn't our strong point or our strategy. We were just working with core developers. But this parcel of land came across my desk, and a client had contracted it at a residence. It was 290 Guns Gully Road in Beveridge. And it was a large parcel, 160 hectares. So he's contracted it. It was a good parcel in a PSP that was coming out in the future. And it was the 24th of December he contracted, so Christmas.
Right.
And he had a 60-day due diligence period, and he wanted to flip it in that period. And he contracted it very cheaply. And it was this mission impossible to find someone to pay more money over that Christmas period. So I worked day and night with the colleague that I had, Sonic, at the time, and Rudy worked on it as well, and Peter in the office. So we worked on it day and night to try and sell it, and we did. We sold it to a company called V Leader, and they paid millions on top of, basically, he contracted for like 35 million, and they ended up paying over 40 odd million. So this,
Wow.
in 60 days, this guy's made millions. And that was just like this crazy whirlwind where no one thought it would get done. Even people in our office were like, "You're not going to get this done." And I was determined, because it was a really good commission for me as well. And it was just something that I liked, the challenge. So if someone puts me up to a challenge, I'll rise to it. And I prove them wrong. And I've done that time and time again. And in this instance, we did. And it was very memorable, because it was just this circus for 60 days. It was just day and night. I lived and breathed it. I was calling people overseas that were on holidays. They were flying back. It was pretty crazy time. But that was very memorable, and that was a pivotal point where because the first deal, I guess, it was Rudy's deal. This deal was a deal that I've initiated, brought on, and controlled. So that was exciting. And then McMahon Place, where this is what I really love. That was exciting, that last one. But land development agreements, I really believe in them. I feel like they're the future. I feel like they're the best way for a family to create generational wealth, not just a sale and then they've sold their land that they might have had for years. So McMahon Place, as you mentioned, it's nearly 1,000 lots. The McMahon family have owned it for over 40 years. It's part of them. It's part of their DNA. They grew up there. They want to be part of it. So the land development model where they stay involved. We've named the estate after their family. So for generations to come, it's McMahon Place, and their family, their grandkids, their great grandkids, everyone can be a part of that and be proud of that. And Resi Ventures obviously proud of that as well. And that connection with the family will always be there. So that's something I really love, and that's that really is a bit of a pulls on the heartstring. And you've got to genuinely love people. I think that the LDA model works so well for me because I love it, I believe in it, and I'm passionate about it. And so obviously Resi Ventures created that model, and I think it's unique in the industry because it does create a true win-win for people looking for that journey. And I mean, the grandkids and the family are in the videos and the marketing, and it's not cheesy. It's something we love to do, and it's something they love to do, and there's something they're proud of and something we're proud of. So that connection there with the family is, will be there for the next 10, 15 years and forever, really, because as past landowners that Resi Ventures has done land development agreements with, they're basically part of the family, and that's creating something nice. I think that was the big change for me from sales to development was I fell in love with the property, the clients, and then once you've sold it, you really don't have anything else to do with it. It's transactional, and that was the part I was missing in my life. I needed to be part of something and see it grow, and just create this community and see it from early stages, inception, to the end product where you're actually seeing landowners, purchasers move into their houses, and it's very exciting that you're there for the whole journey, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah, you're creating an incredible legacy for the family that had owned the land. Maybe they were farmers at some point of time, and now they can kind of be locked into the memory forever, almost.
Yep. Yeah, well, that's it. The name's never going to change. It'll always be McMahon Place. So, they can come there in 100 years and it'll still be called McMahon Place. And then they can talk about their great-grandma that, did the deal with Resi Ventures. And that's something that they can talk about forever instead of, once you've sold the land, it's not yours anymore. The developer.
Yeah, the name changes and that's it.
It's not part of your legacy or your family heritage anymore. And for a lot of these landowners, I would imagine, they've owned the land for 40 plus years. Some have owned it for generations, hundreds of years. It's not something they want to just let go of. It's part of their life. It's in their DNA and their whole family's DNA. So.
Yeah. Look, and you probably skipped ahead a few questions that I had before, but might as well, let's go to it. So land development agreements, talk a little bit about these. Like, what is the structure? How complex are they? How simple are they? What does it actually do for a landowner?
Yep. So the most important thing about a land development agreement is understanding what the person needs, really listening to what makes them tick. What do they need out of this? Are they selling it? Do they just need the money? Like, what do they want to create here? So really, really deep diving and listening, spending the time to listen to their needs. And then also the biggest part of what we do is putting ourselves in their shoes. So it's got to trying to create that real win-win. It's got to be both ways because it's a great model for development because we're not buying the land, we're developing it and we're sharing the development profits. So for us, it's a great model in that instance. And for the landowner, it's a great model because they get to share in that development profit for the duration instead of just selling it. It's done and off you go, see you later. So I guess understanding, that is the most important thing, really, the structure and it's variable. Like some people want a block for, like I know with the McMahons, one of the things was they wanted to donate one of the houses to charity because that's Resi Ventures have done that at Accolade. So that was one of the criteria that we put into the contract, that a house had to be donated to the charity of their choice. So that was really nice. And then there was some incentives for the grandkids on a block of land each and so forth. And so that's something we do. Another deal we're looking at where, the landowners wanted, to live in the estate and they wanted 3 prime blocks in that estate for them. So that was part of the contract. It's like I said, it's giving people some ideas. Some people, one of the vendors in Monument Estate, the Galeas, they live on site. They kept 2 acres themselves, and they actually live there still. This day, they've got a beautiful wetland in front of them, and it's beautiful. They grew up there with a dirt road. Now they've got beautiful roads and a beautiful parkland with some gym equipment and so forth around it in front of them. So they're very happy. So it's very individual.
It varies, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it varies so much, and it's very flexible. Is probably the best part about it. Whereas a sale is very straightforward. It's deposit, it's terms, it's settled. This is very flexible. We can adapt it to suit that person's needs and for the future, and then or obviously create that generational wealth,
if possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how long does it kind of take to put one of these deals in place? Is it like months and meetings and catch-ups, or is it quicker than that?
It's because you're not buying the land. You're creating. You really need to build a lot of trust, because the landowner's trusting Resi Ventures and myself that we're going to see this through. We're going to deliver it. We've got to prove our track record. Our other developments, Resi Ventures' other developments, are the living, breathing reference that I can take landowners to and say, hey guys, have a look at what we've done, meet some landowners. And that goes a long way with new landowners when they meet others. Obviously, it's not just us telling them what we can do for them. But yeah, so it's complicated in a way, but it takes a little bit of time. The contract itself is quite significant, but it answers every question or every scenario that you could possibly have. And there's landowners that I've met 5 years ago that I still keep in touch with, that I haven't done a deal with. It's all about timing, and it's when they're ready. I'm patient. I'm in it for the long haul. Some are ready to go immediately. We've been up in Queensland recently, and there's some landowners there that were ready to go, and it looks like we're moving in the right direction, and that's a good thing. And then it's all about building that trust. And like I said, they've got to believe that, they've got to meet the whole team and know that we can complete this. It's their largest asset usually. It's land, something they've held. It's very precious to their family. A lot of them, grew up there. So it's something that
Has to be done right.
Has to be done exactly. Yeah, it has to be done right. And the contract covers all those scenarios. But it's always starts with a conversation, and people are always a little bit fixated on they don't understand how flexible it can be. So that's the best part about our land development agreements. They are infinitely flexible to suit your needs.
Brilliant. And how about your side? So the process of actually starting to do the due diligence and making sure that landowner's idea matches the win for Resi Ventures as well.
Yep. And that's a feasibility. So the first instance is meeting the landowner. We've identified that it's in a corridor that we see growth in, and we know there's going to be future growth. So we've identified, infrastructure needs. It's a growing population. We've looked at all the demographics and got some experts involved to identify the area. And then the next stage is identifying the parcels, that pseudo criteria. So generally, we're looking for 200 lots, something that can sustain 200 lots plus. 200 to 500 is sort of our sweet spot where we like to be. And that's generally 12 hectares or larger. But we'll look at things slightly smaller and slightly bigger and varied. And that's the first criteria. And then obviously meeting those landowners and discussing what we do is the next criteria. And then it's got to be a good fit, right? So they've got to like Resi Ventures and what we do, and we've got to,
align with them. Yeah.
Align with them. It's got to be aligned. Yeah. And it's got to work from the start, and you're in the journey together. So you're basically partners for many years. So you've got to like each other. That's paramount. And, you've got to see that you can work together. And like I said, the trust is the hardest thing, because they've just met us. How do you, instill the confidence in that person to hand over their asset in a joint partnership, basically, in a land development agreement? It's difficult. But it's, I guess that true love, you can't, people can read the room, and people can understand that transparency that we provide, and the honesty and the integrity. They can see that and feel that, and you've got to have that genuine belief in what you're doing, and that's why I'm with Resi Ventures, because I believe it's they are the best company in Victoria, and soon to be hopefully Australia eventually. But we're growing. We're in Queensland at the moment, and we're looking at other states. And as you know, we've been over to Adelaide, having a look over there, meeting some landowners. But our reputation is everything, and you've got to lean on that. And everyone in the industry, it's a small industry. Everyone knows everybody, so that reputation is paramount, and you've got to keep that integrity and that transparency and build that rapport with the landowner. But you got to believe it, and you've got to be genuine about your approach, because everything we do relies on our reputation, and that's the most important thing to us.
Absolutely. So now I'm curious. I guess Melbourne was the first step, and you've mentioned some suburbs, Plumpton and Rockbank and so forth. How did you progress from those to looking at regional centres, Echuca, parts of Queensland?
Yeah. So when I joined Resi Ventures over 5 years ago, or nearly 5 years ago, they were focused more into the urban growth boundary of Melbourne.
Yep.
And that became increasingly difficult to find land. And there was, we were booming, and land prices were phenomenal. And at a point where the feasibilities didn't really make sense for us. So we looked regional as a strategy. And that was through COVID, where there was a boom in the regions. And we knew those areas had a growth potential. So, and it was a new market where land development agreements weren't really known. And in the inner growth corridor of Melbourne, they were becoming increasingly difficult, because you were competing against, just massive amounts of cash flow and people were putting out there. And, people will go, I'm getting a $10 million deposit. It's like, well, we're not offering that. So I guess it was just, in a booming market, it's harder to get people to look at that. So it was just a niche that we thought we need to focus on the region, the large regional towns. Echuca became available. Warragul's also, we did a land development agreement there, and we looked at, Ballarat, Bendigo. We ended up purchasing land in Ballarat. It wasn't a land development agreement, but, that's the town that we would definitely do a land development agreement in as well. And just identifying those larger regions that we wanted to target, and then honing in on those and trying to secure a deal. Yeah, on those.
So it was really just the fact that the land became not quite right, the numbers didn't work, and you looked elsewhere.
That's it, and that's exactly when then we branched. Also, regional Victoria, all of Victoria really went in a bit of a downturn over the last couple of years, last 18 months at least. So we've had a really significant downturn, and that got us looking at other states, going, hey, there's Adelaide's booming, Queensland's booming. We didn't branch over to Perth yet, but that, that's gone through a boom. So it made sense to us to look outside of, Victoria at those opportunities. And instead of looking at Victoria as our market, now we're looking Australia-wide. So, had a little bit of a look in Tasmania, New South Wales regionally. We feel like it's sort of the sweet spot for us in some of those larger regional towns, rather than inner Sydney isn't probably our market. And it's just identifying the markets that will stack up for us, feasibilities work, and creating that win-win with the landowner, where they want to be part of that journey of development.
Yeah, for the long term. So as long as it sort of matches that criteria of 200 to 500 lots, really anywhere, and as long as you can deliver it afterwards.
Yeah, larger town, that's right. We generally look for towns, with a scale of population of 10,000 or more. But that's flexible as well. It could be a town of 5,000, but it's closer to a larger regional town. We'd still look at that, within sort of like, I guess, Chichura. We're looking there, even though it's 10 kilometres away from Shepparton, which is a larger region. That's okay. We'd look at those towns. So, yeah, any town that's adjoining a large regional town.
Interesting.
Let's go.
Yeah, great. All right, so let's switch gears a little bit. And you mentioned Rudy Kellerman as one of your earlier sort of mentors. Let's talk about that. So, what were the lessons that you learned from some of these mentors that you've met along the way?
Yeah, yep. So Rudy was, pure salesman. He's been in sales 40 years. He never got into development. He loves what he does. He's still doing it. He's late 60s. We still keep in touch, and he's still doing what he loves. And the lessons I learned was just never give up. Have a good work ethic. Um, just never, he always used to say, he had a lot of sayings, but one of the ones I always remember is a deal needs to fall over at least once before it gets done, and that sort of goes with that. Every no brings you close to a yes. So it's a hard mentality to get your head around, but because a lot of people, when a deal falls over, they're like they're deflated, that their commission's not coming in, and but it's how you resurrect that deal, and really not just like a lot of people that get into sales probably don't study, or become an expert in your field. So if you're working in land, know every landowner, know every person, know every bit of land, know everything about. And there's so much information online. I used to live on VPA, Victoria Planning Authority's website, and just understand the different precinct structure plans and the different growth areas, and being an expert. And that was something he taught us. And then also, the art of or just building that rapport and relationship with people, and putting yourself in their shoes. Step into their shoes, think from their way or their perspective, and sitting down, and we would brainstorm about deals. Like, if a deal didn't get closed, we would really strategize and sit down and brainstorm together and look at it from a different lens. And how can we close this deal? What can we do? What is the landowner? Why isn't the landowner doing this deal? Why isn't the purchaser rising up? So with every deal, it takes the landowner and the purchaser to meet in the middle, and create a real win-win, or a perceived win-win. Everyone wants to feel like they've had a win. So creating that as an agent, your job is to create that transaction and make that mesh together. And I learned that from Rudy. Yeah, and working with him very closely. Like, we worked every day. We were in the car together, day in, day out. He would take us to every meeting, early on, and it was such a learning curve. And he just knew, because he's 40 years in the industry. I mean, he just knew absolutely everybody. So tons of introductions, with people that I still keep in contact today, and that was just invaluable. And I loved working with him. I loved my time there. Um, I had another guy that I worked with, Sunik, and he was great as well. And he was in business all his life, and understood that world. So I learned a lot from him. And of course, Peter, who was my real estate teacher. So we were all in one company. So it was me, Peter, Sunik, and Rudy, all in one company, learning off each other, and me learning more than them. But it got to a point. I had strengths in different areas that they didn't, and I was always really good with people. I just have a genuine love of people. I love, people know me as, I love going to social functions. I'm definitely an extrovert. I love meeting new people. I could meet anybody and talk to anybody. It doesn't worry me. I love that. And everyone's got a story. So I genuinely have an interest in people's story. And that's probably part of what I loved working with Rudy, where I'd meet someone every day who was in the industry and had a story to tell on their growth and how they got there. So when you listen to these stories every day, and then obviously you can pack that and listen to audiobooks and podcasts every day, you're really just in that growth area where you're just poised for growth, and it just becomes normalized. The people around you are all growing, and you just go on that journey, and you love it. It's exciting, and you thrive in it.
Very cool. What really comes through to me is the passion and the fact that for someone to stay in it for 40 years and navigate all the ups and downs and all the different changes, you really have to be passionate about what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And he loves it, and he was great at it. He just had the gift, and he was just really good at what he did and closing deals, and it was just amazing, an amazing person to have around me to learn. Yeah, and then also had Kurum and Anthony were friends of mine. We would put land in front of them continuously, and so I was always learning from them as well. And yeah, and then I guess it was just a point in time where I wanted to, like I said, I wanted to be part of that land development. I thought that was my next journey, and that's when I partnered with the guys at Kurum and Anthony, and they're basically, I knew I had a lot to learn in the development space from them, and they've been my daily mentors, in that industry, and they've got a wealth of
And
knowledge.
quite different in their own ways as well. Like Huram is very different to Anthony.
Yep, they've both got a lot to teach and learn.
Yeah,
I've got a lot to learn from them, which is great. Yeah. So it's been a good journey, and yeah, there's
very
so
cool.
many good people in the industry, and you gravitate towards them. I think, and the people you meet, everyone's got a lesson to give you. I've never really, like, you sort of say to yourself, when are you too old for a mentor? But it's not about how old you are; it's how long you've been in that certain industry. And because haven't been effectively not that long, only 15 years. When you're meeting people who've been in the industry 40 odd years, you've always got something to learn, and I'm always learning from people, and you've got to learn. You've got to sit back, excuse me, and listen, and that's
Absolutely.
the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that actually brings me to the question of, if you were to give advice to someone just starting out in that industry, whether they're wanting to get into land sales or acquisitions, what sort of advice would you give them?
Yeah. I would say learn, learn, learn. Study as much as you can. Um, Never give up. You've got to have that attitude. Most agents I see, in the industry that have come and gone, they just haven't been able to stick it out, because it is a very finicky industry when you're doing land, especially. It's sort of 1 minute you're selling a property, and there's a large commission, but it could take another 2, 3, 4 months for that next deal to come through. So a lot of people tend to give up. So I would say stick at it and don't give up, and have that focus and determination. And those people that have hung in there and stuck it out, for and it takes a good 2, 3 years in the industry of consistency, for people to know you and to get those runs on the board. So I guess that's the biggest part, is learn, become an expert, become valuable, be genuine. That's the hardest thing in the industry. People just not being genuine, people looking for a quick dollar, telling people what they want to hear. The truth always comes out. There's so much information out there now. You've got to have that, not chasing that silver coin or that shiny object.
That silver bullet that's just going to fix it all, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you've got to have that. You've got to be in it for the long haul. And it's a small industry. Everyone knows everyone, and the truth always comes out. So you've got to have that integrity from day one. That's the hardest thing in sales, and and be likable. Be someone people like. You have to genuinely like people in acquisitions, especially. And sometimes that takes having a coffee with, the vendor down the road, and having a chat about their grandkids. But you can't. You've got to enjoy it.
And be genuine about it. Yeah.
Be genuine about it. Exactly. And a lot of people don't have the patience. They're just, focused on the closing the deal, and that doesn't really build that rapport with that landowner. And look, I always look at, never judge a book by its cover. One thing I learned in this industry is everyone you meet, you never know where it leads you. It's hilarious how many times I would meet someone and I go, oh yeah, my nephew's got some land over here, and like, it's just, you don't expect it. You're not talking to that person because you want that, but it's like the more people you talk to, the more opportunities open up, and that's definitely true in this industry. And you just sort of go, really, yeah. So a lot of opportunities come just by talking to people, not targeted. We've found this property, we've identified it, we've done a title search, we've rang the landowner. No, it's just become out of a conversation with somebody, because yeah, I genuinely like talking to people.
Yeah. Look, as you say, the industry is very small and everybody knows each other. And it's the relationships that may guide you and take you to that next acquisition, whatever it may be.
Yeah, and remembering and being thankful to all those people who help you. It's an industry where people can forget a little bit quickly, I guess, because it's so fast paced and fast moving, and everyone's really busy in the industry. I'll give them that, and it's yeah, you just don't want to forget those people that helped you along the way, and guide you, and we got to respect that and be humble and always be thankful for those opportunities and those friendships and relationships.
Yeah, and give back in a way. So,
Yeah,
and that actually brings me to this next question of, so Resi Ventures, from what I understand, you've been involved with quite a few charitable initiatives,
yeah,
Variety Home and some of the
yeah,
others. How did they come about and how do they sort of fit into the company vision?
yeah, yeah. Look, it's something we're all. I mean, the guys that Kurum and Anthony leading from the top, they're very charitable people, and they're just genuinely great people. And it starts from the top, and that whole philosophy is, you know, the whole team basically have that philosophy and that drive and that vision. So very much want to give back, even when there's a tough year in property market, which we've had for a few years. The guys are continuously giving back and rewarding their, even just giving back to their consultants and people that have helped us along the journey. Very very much so, and just that relationship. They just not forgetting and being thankful every day is something that I get from Kurum and Anthony. Even though times are tough, and there was very tough times in the industry, people were closing down. Um, these guys just battened down the hatches and knuckled in, and I guess charity to, and they always gave to charities. Like even through those moments, even when times were tough, they never once wavered from their charitable events. The
Like
variety
auctioning a
bash.
home.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, like it's hard to, it'd be easy to say, nah, we've got to worry about, our back pocket and we're not giving to the variety bash. But like that happens every year. Anthony does the variety bash. There's always charities along the way that the guys are, committing to. But it's more than that. I think with the whole culture with these guys is giving back to everyone, consultants. We just went to the Formula One and the whole team came along. We had a corporate function there. 10 of our clients come down, and that was amazing. And that's something they don't have to do, but it's just a really nice. It is almost charity towards obviously the employees. We do quarterly functions as a company now, which is really nice. We all get together and we do a fun event. We did go karts at the last one, which was great. So there is charity, and there's also just being charitable and giving to, excuse me, the community around you and the people around you, and that's definitely something. The cultural at Resi Ventures is amazing. The they're genuinely beautiful, amazing people that I'm so happy to be a part of.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, it still goes back to the same point, the relationships
Yeah,
and making sure that you're doing the right thing and not just looking for a quick transaction. So,
absolutely.
yeah. Now, let's talk sort of a higher level and trends. So, Melbourne has had a bit of a tough time over the last couple of years. How do you see it progressing from here on? Is Victoria going to get out of it anytime soon? Where are you sort of thinking at?
And it's probably my gut feeling is that we were going to trade out of this, and come good. But the experts are saying the same thing. Talking to Brian Haratzis, you know, and looking at forecasts and predictions. Colin Keane did some comments on it, and basically Melbourne's undervalued now. Where we are um, historically, Melbourne's always played second fiddle to Sydney, and we're way down the list now. Adelaide's, I think, pipped us, and Perth's taken over, Brizzy's taken over. So we're about fifth or sixth in the pecking order now, which is not sure when that's going
Unheard
to
of, right?
but it's unheard of. Yeah, it is. It's unprecedented. So we've contracted, and the market always does overcorrect. This is something you learn, and people explain it to you, and so it always retracts more than it should, and it always rebounds more than it should. It always overcorrects. So it's like a band that always is moving, and that's one of the analogies Anthony at Resi Ventures uses. But it's true, and I always remember that. And so we're at that real contraction stage. I think we will shoot back, and all the experts are saying the same thing, that now is the time to buy. If and I tell friends, family, clients, anyone I can, now's the time to buy in Melbourne. If you can buy a property in Melbourne, it didn't matter what you bought, it's well priced, it's cheap, in my opinion. And that's what I'm advising. I'm sort of just telling clients and friends, and I've done it myself. So I've sort of got my hands on as much property as I can in Victoria. I think it might take 12 months. It more likely will take 2 years. But I think we'll be back in second position to Sydney at some point. And that's going to take some decent growth, nearly 30%, to get back to that position. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So in the countrywide, you feel the opportunities are mainly in Victoria, or there are other pockets that you're exploring?
I think Victoria's going to have really good growth over the next 2 years. I believe Queensland's still got growth potential. We're still seeing some strong growth in some of the regions in Queensland. And Adelaide, we still believe has got a little bit of growth left in it. So we're still looking there for property. And we'd love to have a property there just so we can, as you know, the markets are cyclical. So, they're all at different points in the property clock, as they call it, in different states. So having that diversity in our portfolio will be a really good thing for Resi Ventures, and that's what we're looking to expand to. So yeah, a lot of our time is spent in Queensland, in certain regions. Regional New South Wales is something we're looking at now at some certain pockets, and definitely looking to the future for Victoria, knowing that it's going to have that massive growth. So heavily weighted in Victoria as well.
Yeah, very cool. All right. So, and for the final question, here's something for a bit of fun. Who's Barry?
Who's Barry? Okay. Are you referring to like what my friends call themselves, the Barrys, right?
Yes.
How do you know that?
We checked you out.
Okay. So a group of school friends, my mates I've known since, some of them since grade prep. And there's a group of around 17, 18 of us. And we call ourselves the Barrys, correct? And it's after Barry Crocker, which rhymes with shocker. So we're just a group of guys who just call ourselves the Barrys. And and that's just lasted since school. And these guys are still my mates after, 30, nearly 40 years, some of them. 45 years, some of those guys since grade prep. And we have a tradition every year on Australia Day where we have a flag, Australian flag. It's got Barry Crocker in the middle, and it's got all our names on it. And we do an event every year. But yeah, it's just something we've called ourselves.
That's super awesome. Look, Rodney.
Glad that you mentioned that. I was like, how does he know that?
Well, we just thought, hey, maybe there's something beyond something, but beyond just the obvious. But I think it really highlights your true nature and how much you love people. And having been with some of these guys, 30, 40 years, that's quite incredible to maintain those friendships.
Yep. I reminisced because it was my 50th not long ago. And one of my friends there, Joey, I've known him since I was 5. And, 45 years we've known each other. And like we've never had a disagreement or an argument in 45 years. And he's been my best mate since then and still is. So it's crazy. Yeah, I know. They're long-term relationships. So, I think that is testament to a person and the fact that you can build those and encourage those
connections, and stay with them.
Yep.
Yeah, amazing. Look, I think this is a great point to finish it up. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate how much passion you have for people and creating those win-win situations. So for the listeners, thanks for tuning in to the Lion Pioneers podcast, where we interview as you heard, some of the most prominent land developers in the industry. And it's been an absolute pleasure having you with us here. So, look, we'd love to hear your thoughts, and remember to rate and share the podcast if you found it of interest, and click subscribe when you're there so you don't miss an episode. Thanks again, and have a fabulous day.
Thanks, Dan. Have an amazing day.